Let's pray. Father, as we dig into Daniel one more time, we ask again for your Spirit to lead and guide us. Help us to see the revelations that you want us to see right now. Unseal the book so we have an understanding. We thank you for your wisdom revealed through Daniel's words. In Yeshua's name, amen. Let's start with our prophecy scriptures. Amos 3:7. Adonai God does nothing without revealing his plan to his servants, the prophets. Revelation 22:6. Then he said to me, these words are true and trustworthy. Adonai, God of the spirit of the prophets, sent his angel to show his servants the things that must happen soon. Isaiah 46:9 and 10. I am God, there is none other like me, declaring the end from the beginning, from ancient time, what is yet to come. And an additional one, Ecclesiastes 3:15. Whatever exists has already been. Whatever will be has already been. But God recalls what has passed. That tells me we get recycled news. Things happen in cycles and they come around again. Daniel 1:1. In the third year of the reign of King Jehoiakim of Judah, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon came to Jerusalem and besieged it. Verse 3-6, then the king told Ashpenaz, the chief of his officials, to bring in some of the sons of Israel from royal descent and nobility. Youths without any defect, handsome, proficient in all wisdom, knowledgeable, intelligent, and capable of serving in the king's palace. This is in 605 BC when this happened. They were to be trained for 3 years. At the end, they were to stand before the king. Now among them were some of the sons of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And it says, Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus, 536 BCE. We've already talked about Cyrus in our previous teaching. So he has now spanned this period, and he's now working. He's gone from Babylon and is eventually going to work in Persia. And let's review about King Nebuchadnezzar. Highly religious. He erected temples to Marduk and other gods, and it was all throughout Babylon. He was famous for that. He led armies that destroyed Jerusalem. They took the exiles to Babylon, and Daniel and his friends of the royal descent were taken captive. They had to work 3 years in training so that they could be part of the king's wise men, his inner circle. The king had various prophetic dreams, and Daniel interpreted them. Nebuchadnezzar went insane because he wouldn't worship God, and his son Nabonidus took the throne. And when he would go off traveling in his extended absence, his son Belshazzar was the co-regent. And Belshazzar is Daniel's boss, even though he's not the full-on king. While serving in Babylon, Daniel had this vision of 4 beasts. They represented 4 kingdoms. These matched the 4 kingdoms that were shown to Nebuchadnezzar in his dream. The vision foretold that the Babylonian Empire would be overtaken by the Medo-Persian Empire. This did happen during Daniel's time. Daniel also had a vision about a ram and a goat in battle, and this was prophetic about the future Medo-Persian Empire being overtaken by the Greek Empire. So the service in Babylon was from 605 to 536. That's how long that Daniel served in Babylon. And this is a chart, the summary of all the different dreams and visions. The first 2 on the left side are the ones under Nebuchadnezzar. The 2 dreams on the right side of the chart are when Daniel was serving under Belshazzar. But these are all under Babylon, okay? So if we look at the ones on the left side, the king has seen a statue in his dream. A gold head, silver breast and arms, bronze belly and thighs, iron clay legs, and feet, and stone uncut by hands. He says, I don't know what that stone is. He goes to Daniel and wants to know the interpretation. The second column is what God said was the interpretation. The gold head represented Babylon. The silver breast and arms represented the Medes and the Persians, the next empire. The bronze belly and thighs, God said, this is the Greek Empire. They will overtake the Medes and Persians. The fourth empire, which Nebuchadnezzar saw in the dream as iron legs, and then the toes were divided, iron and clay. He said, this is a very destructive kingdom. I don't know who this is. Daniel said, they are a divided empire. He didn't name them. He didn't say who they were. He said they're very destructive and they're very divided. And then in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, he saw the stone uncut by hands that was hurled at the statue and crushed all the kingdoms. And God said to Daniel, this represents the eternal kingdom that was going to come and crush all the worldly kingdoms, and it will be eternal. Then under Belshazzar, we look at the two dreams on the right columns. Daniel sees the vision of the beasts. He sees a lion that has eagle's wings and a man's heart. What's that? Then he sees another kingdom, the bear that's devouring much flesh. Then he sees another beast, a leopard of 4 heads, and a beast of 10 horns that is slain and burned. And the final one is the Son of Man coming on the clouds. And you see how that compares with Nebuchadnezzar's dreams. They seem to match pretty well. Babylon being the lion that has the eagle's wings and a man's heart. The Medes and the Persians coming later is this bear devouring flesh. The Greek Empire coincides with the leopard of 4 heads. And this highly destructive, divided kingdom is this beast that has 10 horns. The final eternal kingdom is represented very clearly by the Son of Man coming on the clouds. So that was Daniel's vision. Then Daniel saw the other one about the ram and the goats charging at each other, and the ram had 1 short horn and 1 long horn. The goat had 1 horn that eventually split into 4 horns. Well, Daniel didn't know what they meant, but that was the dream that absolutely frazzled him. And when Gabriel came to explain the vision, he told him part of what it meant. Then Daniel fell asleep, and then he still didn't get the explanation about the vision of the morning and evening offerings. So this is that one on the right column. That was all the Babylonian Empire. So these are the ones fulfilled in Daniel's lifetime. Number 1, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream of a tree that was chopped down. That was supposed to represent the Babylonian kingdom and Nebuchadnezzar being taken out of his throne. Belshazzar's handwriting, the hand that shows up and starts writing on the wall, and it was a message that said that the kingdom of Babylon was being taken down. Nebuchadnezzar saw the statue, and Daniel saw the 4 beasts. Both of them, the visions kind of meshed. They matched pretty well. This was Babylon taken down by the Medo-Persian Empire. And then Daniel had a vision of himself in Shushan, which is the capital of the Medo-Persian Empire. Well, at the time he had the vision, he was working in Babylon. He wasn't working in the Medo-Persian Empire. But he sees the vision of himself in Shushan, and he eventually does end up working in Shushan. So those happened in his lifetime. Then there were the prophecies that were going to be for future, and Daniel did not see them happen in his lifetime. He had the interpretation of the statue and the 4 beasts, but he didn't see all of those kingdoms. He saw the first 2, Babylon and the Medo-Persian Empire. He didn't see the other 2. The 4 beasts that he saw, they again represented the same 4 kingdoms, and he saw the Greek Empire take over the Medo-Persians. He didn't see the destructive empire that was highly destructive and crushing everything. He didn't see the eternal kingdom, but he had the prophecy about the Mashiach coming who would bring in the eternal kingdom. The other one that is fulfilled after his lifetime was the vision of the ram and the goats. Again, the Medo-Persians taking over the Greeks. He didn't see that in his lifetime. Then he saw the vision of the very vicious king who was Antiochus Epiphanes IV, who desecrated the Jerusalem temple. That occurred about 400 years, 400 to 500 years after he saw the vision. He also had the prophecy about the coming of the Messiah and the prophecy of his death and the eternal kingdom. Of course, those he didn't see. He also saw in his prophecies the complete destruction of Jerusalem city and the temple again. And that was after the cutting off of the Mashiach. So let's take a look at Daniel 10 now. This is the next chapter we start into. It says, in the third year of King Cyrus of Persia, a message was revealed to Daniel. The oracle was true and concerns a great war. He understood the message and he gained insight through a vision. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning for 3 whole weeks. I ate no rich food, nor did meat or wine enter my mouth, nor did I anoint myself with oil until the end of 3 weeks. This is commonly called today the Daniel fast. No wine, no meat, no rich foods, just vegetables and water. So if you ever hear someone talk about the Daniel fast, they're referring to this passage. Now, remember, Daniel was working for Darius the Mede for a couple of years, and then for King Cyrus of Persia. So it was in the first year of King Cyrus of Persia, we see Ezra 1:1. That's when he made the proclamation that the exiles could go home. And that proclamation concluded the 70-year period of exile that Daniel had discovered in the book of Jeremiah. So it is 2 years after that that he has the dream that he's talking about in Daniel 10. Daniel 10, 4 and 5, it says, on the 24th day of the first month, that would be in the spring, the month of Nisan, and it's just after the Feast of Matzah, right? 24th day of the first month. He says, while I was beside the bank of the river Tigris, I lifted my eyes and looked, and behold, a man dressed in linen with a belt of fine gold from Uzaz around his waist. So he sees a vision, a man dressed in linen. We'll see some of the details of that as we look at other scriptures. He said he saw the great river Tigris. We see the great river Tigris in Genesis 2, verse 10 and 14. It says, a river flowed out of Eden to water the garden. From there it divided and became 4 riverheads. The name of the third river is Tigris. Why would this be in his dream? Because it's a clue that's related to the war. Let's look at Revelation 1:13. Remember, he saw a man dressed in linen. Revelation 1:13 tells us who this is. In the midst of the menorahs, I saw one like the Son of Man, clothed in a robe down to his feet, with a golden belt wrapped around his chest. Revelation 15:6. Out of the temple came 7 angels having 7 plagues, dressed in bright linen, and wearing wide gold sashes around their chests. He is seeing a heavenly figure. This is not a man. He says it looks like a man, dressed in linen with a belt of fine gold. So we know that the Son of Man is clothed in linen and a gold belt, but it also says that these angels were clothed in linen and wearing gold sashes. So, what does he see in this vision? It's definitely a heavenly being. Daniel 10:5 and 6 says, I lifted my eyes and looked. Behold, a man dressed in linen with a fine belt of fine gold. His body was like yellow jasper, his face like a flash of lightning, his eyes like fiery torches, and his arms and his feet like the gleam of burnished bronze, and the sound of his words like a roar of a multitude. This is what he sees. Let's compare it with Revelation 1:14. Notice the part in red. His eyes are like a flame of fire. He saw something in this revelation. Eyes like a flame of fire. Daniel saw eyes like fiery torches. In Revelation 2, it says the Son of God has eyes like flames of fire. Well, see some commonality. Revelation 19:12. His eyes are like a flame of fire, and many royal crowns on his head, and he has a name written that no one knows except himself. So is Daniel having an appearance from the Son of God? It seems like it. It says his feet were like gleams of burnished bronze. Revelation describes this figure, the Son of God, has feet like polished bronze. Revelation 2:18 says the Son of God has feet like polished bronze. It sure does sound like he's having an appearance from the Son of God. Daniel says, I saw that his sound of his words was like a roar of a multitude. Revelation 1:14, describing the Son of Man, his voice was like the roar of rushing waters. So from all appearances, it sure looks like Daniel has had an appearance from the Son of God himself. Would that make sense? Daniel is the one who was told by Gabriel, you're the one giving the message about the Messiah. I guess it would make sense that Daniel would get to see him. Daniel 10:7-9. He says, only I, Daniel, saw this vision. The men that were with me did not see the vision. Nevertheless, such a great terror fell upon them that they fled and they hid themselves. So I was left alone to see this great vision. My strength drained from me, and my vigor was destroyed, and I could not summon any strength. Yet I heard the sound of his words. I heard him speaking, and I fell on my face in a deep sleep with my face to the ground. So the very presence of this vision, the very presence of what he saw, knocked him to his feet. It must have been an overpowering presence. We see the same thing happen in Revelation 1. It says, when I saw him, talking about the Son of God, I fell at his feet like a dead man. But he placed his right hand on me, saying, don't be afraid. I am the first and the last, the one who lives. I was dead, but look, I am alive forever. So apparently with Daniel falling on his face to the ground, he must have been in the presence of this same Son of God. Acts 22, we see the exact same thing. When it happened that I was traveling and drawing near to Damascus, this is Paul talking, about noon a great light from heaven suddenly flashed all around me, and I fell to the ground. There it is again. He fell to the ground in the presence of Yeshua. 1 Kings 8:11, the Kohanim could not stand up to perform their service, for the glory of Adonai filled the house of Adonai. So it shouldn't be a surprise to us that Daniel sees this vision and he falls to the ground, because what he's seeing is the very presence of God. Daniel 10:10-12 says, then, behold, a hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. And he said, Daniel, highly valued man, carefully consider the words I'm speaking to you. Stand up, for now I have been sent to you. Okay, now this word sent gives us another clue. When he spoke this word, I stood up trembling, and he said, don't be afraid, Daniel, for the first day that you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard. I have come because of your words. Remember James 5:16, the effective prayer of a righteous person is very powerful. This is what happened to Daniel. This being from heaven, whether this is the Son of God himself or a representation as an angel, has come because Daniel prayed. Don't ever think that our prayers are not powerful. So what about this sent? What does he mean he's sent? Numbers 20:16. But we cried out to Adonai. He heard our cry, sent an angel, and brought us out of Egypt. Daniel 6:23 said, my God sent an angel to shut the lion's mouth. 1 Chronicles 21:15, God sent an angel to Jerusalem to destroy it. Luke 1:26, the angel Gabriel was sent by Adonai to a town in Galilee named Nazareth. Revelation 22:16, I, Yeshua, have sent my angel to testify these things to you for my communities. So now we know he didn't see the Son of God. He saw someone who was sent from the presence of God. And even that was enough to knock him down on the ground. So again, back to the vision, Daniel 10:12. He says, don't be afraid, Daniel, for the first day you set your heart to understand and humble yourself before God, your words were heard. I came because of your words. So what are the words? Could it be from that previous prayer that we just looked at in Daniel 9, when he confessed the sins of Israel? Daniel 9, he says, while I was still speaking, praying, confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, it goes on, while I was praying, Gabriel, the one I had seen in the earlier vision, came to me swiftly. Okay? So he's talking about when I'm praying and confessing and interceding for my people, he shows up. The angel came because of Daniel's words. Daniel 10:12-13, I came because of your words. However, the prince of the kingdom of Persia resisted me for 21 days. But behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me because I had been detained there with the king of Persia. Notice the words. Michael, the archangel, is called a prince. And then he says, there was this battle for 21 days. There was the prince of the kingdom of Persia that detained me. Well, prince detaining Michael, it had to be a heavenly prince. It must be a prince of darkness who stands over the kingdom of Persia. He has detained Michael from getting through. Ephesians 2 talks about these princes. It says, you once walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who now works in the children of disobedience. So angels were called princes, whether they were working for God or working for the other side. They were princes. So now we have established Daniel has seen an angel, one who looks like a human being. And he says, I've come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future days. Who is this for? Your people. This is not a universal prophecy. This is for your people, Israel. While he was speaking these words, I bowed my face toward the ground, and I was speechless. And then behold, one who resembled a human touched my lips. I opened my mouth and spoke and said to him that stood before me, oh my Lord, because of the vision, anguish has overcome me. I have no strength. How can this servant of my Lord's speak with my Lord, since no strength remains in me and no spirit is left in me? Where do we see that phrase, touched my lips? We see it in Isaiah 6. one of the seraphim, that's angels, flew to me. Isaiah is talking. With a glowing coal in his hand, which he had taken with tongs from the altar, he touched my mouth with it. And he said, "Behold, this has touched your lips. Your iniquity is taken away. Your sins are atoned for." So the touching of the lips was to say, I've received your prayer. You confessed the sins of Israel. I heard what you said. I am touching your lips. Your iniquity is taken away. Your sins are atoned for. It's an answer to his words, his confession. So it says on verse 18 to 19 in Daniel 10, again, the one who looked like a man touched me and strengthened me. He said, "Highly valued man, don't fear. Shalom to you. Be strong now." Chasak, which means be strong. Even as he spoke to me, I was strengthened. And he said, "Let my Lord speak, for you have strengthened me." And then he, the angelic being, said, "Do you understand why I've come to you? Now, I must return to fight against the prince of Persia." Remember, this is Michael, the archangel, talking. This is the first time Michael shows up in the Bible, by the way. The second time he shows up by name is in Revelation, and you never hear about him again. Daniel is a really important guy that he could have Gabriel show up and Michael show up. He's pretty impressive. So he says, "Do you understand why I came? I have to return to fight the prince of Persia, the angelic being who is over the nation of Persia. When I go, behold, the prince of Greece will come, the another angelic being. But first, I tell you what is recorded in the writing of truth. No one strengthened me against these except Michael, your prince. In the first year of Darius the Mede, I took my stand to support and protect him." He's talking about Michael coming to give him a message and to say, "Do you understand? I want you to know that I heard your prayer. I heard your confession for Israel. And I'm touching your lips. You're atoned. Your sin is atoned for. Now you're ready for the next thing. I came because of your words." Psalm 103:20. "Bless Adonai, you angels of his, mighty in strength, performing his words upon hearing the utterance of his word." Do you see what angels do? They come when we speak his words, God's words. Wasn't Daniel doing that in his prayer? He was praying from Leviticus 25:6. Hebrews 1:14 says, "Are they not all ministering spirits sent out for service to those who are about to inherit salvation?" So angels are for ministering to us. They bring us messages. They minister health and healing. They strengthen us. They are ministering based upon our words. Our words. Isaiah 58:6-9 says, "Is not the fast that I've chosen to release the bonds of wickedness, to untie the cords of the yoke, let the oppressed go free, and to tear off every yoke?" So fasting is going to do that. He says, then, after you fasted, you will call and Adonai will answer. You will cry and he will say, "Here I am." So the angels respond to our words and they respond to our fasting. Daniel had been fasting 21 days. He had been praying, he had been fasting, and God was quick to respond by sending ministering spirits. We need to understand that. Our prayers are powerful. They affect the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light. They make an impact. So let's look at Michael. Where did we see him show up? Daniel 10:13. "Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me." Verse 21. "No one strengthened me against these enemies except Michael, your prince." Daniel 12:1 says, "Michael, the great prince who stands guard over the sons of your people, will arise." Jude 1:9, Michael the archangel, disputing with the devil, was arguing about the body of Moses. Revelation 12:7, a war broke out in heaven. Michael and his archangels were making war against the dragon. So what do we know about Michael? He's a chief. He's one of the chief warriors of all the angelic hosts. He strengthens us, he stands guard for us, and he disputes the devil on our behalf. That's what we know about him. And he has appeared to Daniel. Why? Because this is about a great war. Verse 1 and 2, it says, a message was revealed to Daniel, whose name was called Belteshazzar. That was his Babylonian name that people called Daniel. The oracle was true. It concerns a great war. This war, by the way, is described in chapter 11, which we will do after the break. Daniel 10, verse 20, I must return to fight against the prince of Persia. When I go, behold, the prince of Greece will come. So this war, we will see it described in an enormous detail in Daniel 11. Daniel had previous dreams about these two kingdoms, Persia and Greece. Now he has this message about the war. We're going to look at the previous dreams compared to his new revelation, because we need the backstory, okay? So let's look at the old dreams. Daniel 2:31 to 35. You looked, O king, and behold, there before you was a huge statue. This is the dream of Nebuchadnezzar. An enormous, dazzling image whose appearance was awesome. The head of the statue was pure gold, breasts and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, feet partly iron and partly clay. While you were watching, a stone was cut out, but not by hands. It struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay, and it smashed them. The iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were all crushed together. They became like chaff from summer threshing floors that the wind blows away. Not a trace of them could be found. And then the stone, that's the eternal kingdom, then the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. So this was that first dream that is the backstory to the Great War. So he is working in Babylon, and then he ends up working in Medo-Persia because the kingship changes. And then the Greek Empire is next, and he foresees it in the Great War. Daniel 2:44 to 45. Now in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will this kingdom be left to another people. It will crush and bring to end all these kingdoms. It will endure forever. Just as you saw a stone cut out of a mountain, yet not by hands, crushing the iron, bronze, clay, silver, and gold, the great God has made known to the king what will happen in the future. Now the dream is certain, its interpretation is trustworthy. This is revealed to Nebuchadnezzar. This is that statue. It's revealed to an ungodly king. Remember, Nebuchadnezzar was called my servant. Okay, Daniel 2, King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face. He paid homage to Daniel. He gave orders that an offering and incense would be provided for him. In response to the king, said to Daniel, surely your God is the God of gods. He is the Lord of kings. He is the revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal my secret, the secret vision. Then the king promoted Daniel. He lavished on him many marvelous gifts and made him the ruler over the whole province of Babylon and the chief over all the wise men of Babylon. So because Daniel could interpret that crazy dream of the statue, he could tell the king exactly what it meant, he was promoted. And the king finally worshiped the God of Israel. Then we go to Daniel 7, and this is about the lion, the bear, and the leopard. Daniel 7, in the first year of King Belshazzar of Babylon, Daniel had a dream, and the visions passed through his mind. I was looking in my vision at night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were churning up the great sea. 4 huge beasts came up from the sea, each different from the others. Daniel 7:4. The first one was like a lion. So he sees a vision of a beast. It looks like a lion, but this lion has eagle's wings. That's pretty strange. Now, a lion is fierce, very fierce toward its prey. That's what this kingdom is like. Babylon was extremely fierce in going after their conquests. Then Daniel 7, verse 5. And behold, there before me was another beast, a second one, like a bear. It raised up on one side. It had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And it was told, arise, devour much flesh. Well, why a bear? Why would God show him a bear? Bears are slow. They're predators, but they're carefully watching until they pounce. They take time. That was the Medo-Persian Empire. They spread, but they spread slowly. And what about the 3 ribs in his mouth? Well, the Medo-Persian Empire had 3 major conquests. These were the 3 ribs. And they had a lot of deaths. And it says, Daniel saw in his vision, they're going to devour much flesh. The Medo-Persian Empire did that. So his dreams are very accurate. Even if he didn't understand them, the angel came and told him what they meant. Daniel 7:6, it says, after I looked, and behold, there was another, this was the 3rd beast, another one looking like a leopard. On its back were 4 wings, like those of a bird. The beast had 4 heads. It was given the authority to rule. Why a leopard? Well, leopards are extremely fast, one of the fastest creatures in the animal kingdom. He is saying to Daniel, this kingdom is going to spread really fast. The Greek Empire did spread to all the known world over a really short period of time. It was led by King Alexander the Great. Alexander was so good at conquests, and he did it so quickly that he was bored silly by the time he was in his, late 20s, I think it was, and he died. He had nothing else to do, and so he eventually died. But before he died, he divided up his kingdom into 4 separate sections. And so Daniel sees it on the beast. He sees the beast with 4 heads. Why 4 heads? Those are the 4 kingdoms that come from the empire that Alexander the Great started. So there's our lion, our bear, and our leopard. Now, what's interesting about this is Daniel is looking forward to future kingdoms. There's going to be a lion, there's going to be a bear, there's going to be a leopard. But we see the exact same description in the book of Revelation 13, 1-3, but it's backwards. I see a beast rising out of the sea, 10 horns, 7 heads. Now this beast was like a leopard, a bear, and a lion. Wait, didn't Daniel say lion, bear, leopard? Why is John in Revelation saying it's the other way around? Think about this. Daniel is looking forward at what will happen. John in Revelation is talking about kingdoms that have already happened. He's looking backward. Daniel's looking forward, and John is looking backward. That's why they're in reverse order. But these beasts, according to Revelation, they incorporate all kingdoms. All these pieces of these kingdoms are all kind of incorporated together. Why? Because the roots go back to Babylon. Do you remember the image in Nebuchadnezzar's tree, this massive tree that was going to be chopped down? But it said in the story that the tree was chopped down to the stump. They didn't take the stump out. The roots were still left in the ground. So the roots of Babylon were still there when Babylon was destroyed. The roots were still available to keep on making an effect. So what was this dream that Nebuchadnezzar had about the tree? Daniel says, "The tree you saw grow large and strong, whose top reached to heaven, that was visible to all the earth, whose leaves were beautiful, and whose fruit was so abundant that there was food in all of it, and beneath which the beasts of the field lived, and the branches birds of the sky dwelt. It's you, king. You're the tree. You've grown great and mighty. Your greatness reaches to heaven. Your authority extends to the end of the earth. Babylon is in control of the whole earth." He says, "You, O king, saw a watcher, a holy one," that's an angel, "coming down from heaven and saying, 'Chop down the tree and destroy it.'" An angel said that. And then the angel said, "Leave a stump with the roots in the ground." With the fetters, that means shackles and constraints. What does he see? The fetters of iron and bronze. Weren't those part of that statue that Nebuchadnezzar saw? He sees them in another way. He sees them in that dream. The iron and the bronze. They're left right there in the field. So Babylon is chopped down, but somehow there's this residue that keeps on going in the other kingdoms. So Daniel 10, back to this great war that he sees. We actually see a glimpse of it when we look into chapter 11, because that's where we see the great war. In 11:2 it says, "Now I will declare the truth. Behold, 3 more kings will arise in Persia." Remember, at this point when he's getting this dream, he has already interpreted the handwriting on the wall for King Belshazzar. And he said, "King, you're toast. You're going down. Babylon's gone because of what you've done." So he's already predicted that. He's already told him, and he's already seen it. Now he's working for the king of Persia. So that kingdom is now in existence. And he says, the angel says to Daniel, 3 more kings will arise in Persia. Then a 4th one will be far richer than all. When he becomes powerful through his wealth, he will stir up everyone against the realm of Greece. So I've listed there the different kingdoms, the names of the kings, and you'll see who the 4th one was after Cyrus the Great. It was Xerxes the First, who was son of Darius the First. He reigned from 485 to 465 BCE. It is this man, Xerxes, who is a part of this great war that Daniel sees in the future. All right, let's look at Daniel 11. Now we're going to start to see the great war. Verse 2 to 4. Xerxes the First, the one I just mentioned, that's the 4th king after Cyrus. Xerxes the First will stir up everyone against the realm of Greece. Remember, he's a Persian king. He's stirring up trouble. He wants to make sure they fight against Greece and overtake them. It says, "A mighty king will arise who will rule with great authority and do as he pleases. As soon as he has arisen, his kingdom will be broken up and distributed to the 4 winds of heaven. Though it will not go to the descendants, nor will it have the authority he exercised, for his kingdom will be uprooted and given to others besides these." Think about this. These are words the angel is telling to Daniel. He's telling him there is coming this future kingdom, this mighty king who's going to arise, but his kingdom is going to be broken up into 4 pieces, but it won't go to his descendants. So he's telling Daniel, and let's see how that actually played out. The future mighty king after Xerxes was Alexander the Great. He ruled the Greek Empire in 336 BCE, and he was only aged 20. He was undefeated in battle. He never lost a single conquest. He ended up conquering the Persian Empire. Who was that? Xerxes the First. He conquered while Xerxes was in charge. He overthrew Darius III. He spread the empire from Greece to northwest India. He Hellenized the culture, so now everybody was speaking Greek, doing Greek things. He created a language that was universal, the Greek language. After his death at age 32, I'm sorry, I think I said 20s earlier. After his death at age 32, the kingdom broke into 4 empires. Was Daniel accurate? You bet. The angel told him exactly what would happen. 4 empires. There was the Ptolemaic Empire, the Seleucid Empire, the Attalid, and the Antigonid. They were led by Alexander's 4 generals. So before he died, he sat down with his generals. I'm dying, I don't feel good, I'm going to divide this up. And he picks the 4 generals, and that's what Daniel gets in his message from the angel. There will be a great king, but the 4 heads on that leopard are the 4 kingdoms that are going to break off from this. He's accurate, 100% accurate. Was he not 100% accurate when he predicted when the Messiah would come? Yes. Was he 100% accurate about the different kingdoms in the statue of Nebuchadnezzar? Yes. Did he predict the fall of Babylon? Yes. Daniel was always accurate. So as we go into the details of the war, we're going to find out that every single verse we can find the historical accuracy. Every verse. Remember that Daniel had that previous dream about the ram and the goat having an attack against each other. That was in Daniel chapter 8. It says, I lifted up my eyes and looked. There was a ram with 2 horns standing in the front of the canal. The 2 horns were long, one was longer than the other. The longer one grew up fast. At last, I saw the ram charging toward the west and the north and the south. Now, he was given the interpretation by the angel. The angel said, this is what this means. While I was contemplating, that's it. When I was contemplating this, behold, a male goat from the west was crossing the face of the whole earth without touching the ground. Now the goat had a conspicuous horn between his eyes. He came up to the 2-horned ram that I had seen standing beside the canal and charging it with raging strength. He sees the ram, he sees the goat, he doesn't know what it means, but he's standing there at Shushan, the capital of Persia, and he sees this vision. And he's told, this is what the male goat represents, this is what the ram represents, this is the battle between the Medo-Persian Empire, where you will be working, and the goat, who is Greece. They're going to have a major battle after your death. After you're gone, Daniel, this is going to happen. So Daniel 8, again, he sees in the dream, I saw him attacking the ram furiously. Who was the ram? Who was the goat? It was Xerxes the first. I saw him attacking the ram furiously, striking the ram and shattering the horns. Now the ram was not strong enough to stand against him, so he knocked the ram to the ground and trampled him. The ram was Xerxes. The goat was Alexander the Great. The male goat became exceedingly great, but as soon as he became mighty, the large horn was broken. In its place, 4 prominent horns grew up toward the 4 winds of heaven. Out of them was a small horn, grew extremely large to the south and the east, and toward the beautiful land. What is the beautiful land? That is a term in the scripture for Israel, the beautiful land. So how did this come to pass? Daniel saw it in the dream. What happened? It's about Greece, and Xerxes the first in Medo-Persian Empire is attacking Greece, and Greece comes back at them and overcomes them. After Alexander the Great conquered Medo-Persia, he died. The 4 generals took over the empire. There was one that was the horn that grew up extremely large. That's what he saw in his vision. That was Antiochus IV Epiphanes. He was in charge of the Seleucid Empire who attacked the beautiful land. His Seleucid Empire kept attacking Israel mercilessly, and they desecrated the Jerusalem temple in 167. This is 370 years after Daniel's dream. That's how far into the future he's seeing. So what was the meaning of the ram and the goat? Again, the angel tells him, "The ram you saw with 2 horns stands for the king of Medo-Persia. The buck, the male goat, is the king of Greece. The large horn between his eyes is the first king. The 4 horns that replaced that was broken represent the 4 kings that arise from this nation, although not with its power." So in other words, Alexander the Great had a very, very powerful Greek empire. But upon his death, when he left it to the 4 kingdoms, they never were as powerful. It says, "Now toward the end of their reign, when the measure of transgressions is completed, a stern-faced king, a master of intrigue, will arise." This is the really wicked guy with the large horn. "He will cause extraordinary devastation. He will destroy both the powerful and the holy people. He will cause deceit to prosper. He will consider himself superior. He will even stand up against the Prince of Princes." Who would that be? Our Messiah. He will even stand up against the representation of God himself. "Yet he will be broken, but he won't be broken by human hands." This is a description. That large horn that grows out of the 4 kingdoms is this wicked king, Antiochus IV, who stands up against the God of Israel. He defies him. He defies the holy people. He defies the sacred temple. Daniel 8 and verse 26. Remember, we talked about that one, the vision of the evenings and mornings. He says to Daniel, "Seal up the vision because it concerns many days from now." So that part about the vision, that it concerned many days from now, he's referring back to Daniel's dream. Daniel 8, 13 to 14 says, "Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to the one who was speaking, 'How long will this vision last? The daily sacrifice be forsaken because of rebellion, and the sanctuary be trampled, and the host be trampled.' And then he said, 'How long? 2,300 evenings and mornings, and then the sanctuary will be vindicated.'" Did this come to pass? Daniel has been given the vision. He's been told about the ram and the goat who were battling each other, but he also had that other vision about the evenings and the mornings. And Daniel is told what it means. It's 2,300 evenings and mornings. That's how long the sanctuary will be trampled, and then it will be vindicated. What in the world is he talking about? Okay, 2,300 evenings and mornings. We addressed this earlier today. This is about the morning and evening sacrifices in the temple. So if you have an evening and a morning sacrifice, that's 2 sacrifices each day. So 2,300 evening and morning sacrifices represent 1,150 days of sacrifices. Does that make sense? You've got to take your 2,300, that's 2 a day, divide that by 2, you get the answer. 1,150 days of sacrifices are going to be interrupted. They will be stopped. And if we add up those 1,150 days, it comes to about 3 years and 3 months, okay? It turns out, if you look in history, the recordings say that Antiochus IV desecrated the Jerusalem temple. He went in with a statue of Zeus, and he put it on their altar, and he said, "You got to bow down to Zeus." Oh, they weren't going to do it. Then he took in pigs and started sacrificing pig's blood on the altars and desecrated the temple. He kept them away from using their holy temple for about 3.5 years. He stopped the sacrifices so they couldn't do them because he had his statue right in the middle of everything. He was doing sacrifices, so they couldn't. And so he stopped the sacrifices and desecrated the temple, and they couldn't get it back until they kicked him out, and then they had to clean it up. So they didn't get to use their temple for 3.5 years. All right, now we look at Daniel 11 about the dream of the 4 beasts. We looked at that before. Daniel says, "My spirit was disturbed within me, and the vision of my head alarmed me. I approached one of these standing nearby. I asked him the true meaning of all of this. So he spoke with me, and he revealed the interpretation of these things. These large beasts, 4 in number, are 4 kings that will arise from the earth. But the Kedoshim, that's the holy ones of the Most High, will receive the kingdom, and they will possess the kingdom forever. Yes, forever and ever." So let's talk about what that means. Remember that Daniel had previously prophesied that there would be a rebuilding of Jerusalem's temple and the city. And in his day, King Cyrus started that process. It got stopped. King Artaxerxes I commanded that they stop doing anything, and then Artaxerxes II commanded that they start again. So it did happen. It just didn't get completed in his lifetime. But he had prophesied about the rebuilding of the temple and the city. But then he had this dream that that same rebuilt temple and city was going to be desecrated again. And later, the total destruction of the temple and the city, completely. Well, this had to be upsetting because he was looking forward to his holy land being restored. But Daniel saw this in the vision, and he was reminded, but there will be a final eternal kingdom, and it will prevail over all the other kingdoms. So let's review what we've covered so far in Daniel 10 through 11. We have not even begun to scratch the surface of Daniel 11. We'll get to that after lunch. So Nebuchadnezzar was a servant of Yahweh, even though he didn't know him. He was called a servant. Cyrus was also anointed by Yahweh, even though he didn't know him. Daniel prayed and fasted, and because of his prayers, because of his fasting, his words caused the angels to act. Daniel was promoted because he was faithful. Daniel's dreams prepared him for the upcoming political conquests in his lifetime. Daniel alone had an appearance from Michael the archangel. Nobody else in Scripture had an appearance from Michael the archangel. No one. Daniel had 2 appearances from Gabriel before Gabriel appeared to 2 other people. So think about that. Daniel had the very first appearance of Michael the archangel. Daniel had the very first appearance of Gabriel. Interesting. That's Daniel. That's important. God says, listen to this man. This man is right. I'm giving him my words. Then John, in the book of Revelation, is a second witness to Daniel's prophecies. When we study the book of Revelation, which we will do in a few more months, then we can see that they fit together. What John saw in his visions matches and coincides with what Daniel saw in his prophecies. So far, Daniel's prophecies have been 100% accurate. So can we expect that he will remain 100% accurate for all the prophecies that are yet to come? I think it's a safe bet. That's one I would bet on. Let's pray. Father, we thank you that you give us the end from the beginning. You speak to your prophets because you want us to know. And then when these things come to pass, we know that we know that we know that your hand is in what just came to pass. So you give us this revelation ahead of time so we will recognize you when we see your hand move. We thank you that you are continually reaching down to us and sending messengers and sending messages because you want us to communicate with the God of all gods, the King of all kings. And we thank you and we praise you. In Yeshua's name.